A. So anything I say is definitely not meant to replace your medical care. Check with your doctor before implementing any of the suggestions. On that note, we're going to dive right in. A lot of questions, and there's a lot of people in our green room. So over to you, Steve.
Okay, absolutely. So green room, 4 people. So we're going to get to you. And but let's start off with our friends from social media, starting with Gordy from Scotland on YouTube. Welcome. I watched your video about 5-day fast. I don't think I could go that long, but what are the benefits of fasting for one day?
Huge. You should try it. I never recommend doing 5 days until you work up to it. See how you feel. I think the big misconception is that you're going to be really hungry when in fact you're eating your own fat. And so you're not going to be hungry. Your blood sugars are going to be stable. And it's like, wow, this is easier than I thought. And then the benefits are amazing. So even on a 1-day fast, you're going to dump a lot of the glycogen in the liver, which is that stored kind of like a sponge with sugar and water and some potassium. So that's going to go away. And so you'll lose also fluid retention if you have that. But you should feel much better because you're reducing your insulin and allowing your body to get into fat burning. Now, if you do a 1-day fast, and so you have to kind of also differentiate if you're doing regular intermittent fasting, because I wouldn't do like 3 days or 3 meals a day with snacks and then do a 1-day fast once a week. Like, you're not going to probably see much for that. It's much better if you implement intermittent fasting, maybe 2 meals a day or even 1 meal a day, and then do a periodic, 1 day where you don't eat anything. So I think that would be way more beneficial. There's another fast that people do where they're fasting on the weekends only. So they will do, I think on the weekends it's not even a true fast. It is 500 calories. So I don't like that either because yes, it's low calorie, but if you're eating something, it's going to stimulate hunger and you're not going to adapt fully to fat burning. It's going to be kind of brutal. So this whole secret to fasting is get your body adapted to fat, which takes a couple days, and then it's easy versus trying to do it sporadically.
Interesting. Okay, let's go to Nikita from YouTube. My sister has very hard stools. We've been feeding her sauerkraut, which seems to be helping. Which supplements would you recommend to soften her stool? And Nikita, you're certainly a team player in your family.
You want to look at the diet too to make sure that that is a healthy diet. And I don't really know your history too. So if someone always had constipation, that's one thing. If you did something, then all of a sudden you develop constipation, that's another thing. You want to revert back to whatever you did because there's something not right. But typically constipation stems from some issue with the microbes, microbes. And that could happen after an antibiotic. It can also, because your microbes make bile salts, it can influence bile salts. So even if you just don't have enough bile salts, that can create a situation where you get constipation too. This is why when people start taking more bile salts, purified bile salts, it starts to lubricate the colon, starts to clean out the microbes from the small intestine, and that seems to resolve constipation in some people. So there are different causes, and it's really hard to answer the question unless we find out what your specific cause is. So.
All right, very good. Let's go to Petra81 from Rumble. Is keto or carnivore, with intermittent fasting okay for someone with adrenal fatigue?
Absolutely, because when you start to reduce carbs, you start running your body in ketones. This increases something called GABA in the brain. So your brain's calmer versus higher sugars. You're going to be more in the sympathetic mode, which is the flight or fight mode. And so a lot of people, after they cut out the carbs, they're calmer, their mood is better, they have better cognition. So Yes, it would actually help you.
All right, very good. Let's go to Switch from YouTube. What are your thoughts about pulling with coconut oil to whiten teeth? I've heard maybe it means brushing. Maybe it removes bacteria, bad bacteria, and activates good bacteria. That's coconut oil.
Yeah, I don't know because there's not really coconut oil. There's not a lot of microbes in coconut oil, but there's some data that shows that there might have some properties in coconut oil that can help the microbiome in your mouth. I don't know. I don't know. If you wanted to whiten the teeth, I do have a kind of a combination of using baking soda and hydrogen peroxide in very small quantities here and there because it'll kind of clean some of the stains out of the teeth, and you can use a gentle brush to do that. But I don't have a lot of information on that coconut oil.
All right, very good. Well, let's move on to some other information. How about Mimi from YouTube? Do you have any plans to bring your perfect keto aminos back to your online store? They were the absolute best. So you had something like that?
I think, you could actually just, there's a company that sells them. It's called Perfect Aminos. You can just get them from them. They do sell them. You can look it up. It's the exact same form of amino acids, and I think it's a company by Dr. Minkoff. So yeah, you can just get them. It's called Perfect Amino. But yeah, we're not going to go back to selling them, but you can get them from another company.
Okay, very good. I may have confused the audience. I said, do you have any plans? Plans. And you had a perfect comment on that. Okay, let's go to Ephraim from YouTube. I have gastritis and a burning in my stomach and loss of appetite. What steps should I take to resolve these issues?
So there's two similar conditions: gastritis and then acid reflux. And you really want to differentiate them because typically to get rid of like GERD and acid reflux, you want to add more acid to the stomach, betaine hydrochloride. But if you have gastritis where your cells are producing too much acid, and usually there's inflammation with that, if you add apple cider vinegar, it will feel worse. You'll have more burning. In which case, you don't want to add more acid. What you want to do instead is you want to have something called zinc carnosine, mastic gum, and sulfur, like chlorophyll would help, like liquid chlorophyll will help because you want to heal the stomach. But zinc carnosine is one of the better remedies for that, especially if it's related to anything with that microbe called H. pylori. But you can watch my videos on it. I go into detail on how to deal with that and differentiate that.
All right, very good. Why don't we start off with our first great quiz question today? Sorry, last week we were all true, false. This week, there's none. It's all put on your thinking cap. There's our first one, Doc.
Okay. Which is more effective for dry eyes, vitamin A or vitamin B1?
Audience, it's up to you. Okay, let's go back to social media, where Sandra from YouTube, she has hypothyroidism. Could I consume chia seeds to help with weight loss?
I wouldn't say that would be the best remedy for weight loss. And when you don't have a thyroid, or you don't have normally function thyroid, obviously it's going to make it hard to lose weight. So you'd want to address that. 90% of all hypothyroid conditions are Hashimoto's, which is an autoimmune situation, in which case you need to just really increase the vitamin D and add selenium to get that thyroid kicked in. And then the slower the metabolism, the more you need to do more low carb and intermittent fasting to be able to lose weight. And chia seeds are it's just not a good source of nutrition because seeds are encapsulated very tightly. They have different things in them which are anti-nutrients. People can react to it. So, but that's on a whole new, that should be it. I should do a video on that, but yeah.
All right, very good. Well, we got a full house, as you said, in our green room, and our first guest is Thomasina, excuse me, and she's got a little bit of rough audio. So if you all would bear with the noise, Thomasina, go ahead with your one quick question for us.
Hi. Okay, well, it's more so on the hibiscus tea because I, have hypertension sometimes. And thank you, Dr. Berg, for letting me know it's not a disease, it's a symptom. But trying to lower it without medication. So I just wanted to know if hibiscus tea, like how long should I take it before I think it's really working for me or not?
So that's a good question. There's a lot of different remedies that people take for high blood pressure, different teas. They take vitamin D, which is very powerful, that could really make a difference with the inside of the artery. But if you think about high blood pressure, the inside of the artery is already damaged, so the signals are messed up, and so now the arteries are going to be tighter, more stiff, and then the blood pressure is going to go up. So there's a lot of remedies that you could take, but honestly, they might not work unless you fix the root cause. And that relates to something called nitric oxide in the arteries. And to really dramatically improve that, you want to go really low carb. I mean, like maybe even carnivore for a while, just to lower that carb. The inflammation will come down, the nitric oxide will come up, and then you'll see that these remedies, teas and things, will work a lot better. So I would go low carb, make sure it's quality, maybe even carnivore, and then vitamin D, high doses of potassium, and magnesium especially. Those three together would be a good starting point. And then from there, you can kind of test different things. They have different teas and things to help you, but you want to make sure you do that in that order, because so many people are kind of doing like, you could take a drug to lower blood pressure, or you could take also an herbal remedy that mimics a drug to lower blood pressure. But there's also a root cause that medicine never looks at, ever. They don't look at your lifestyle. They're not looking at insulin resistance. They're not looking at inflammation deep in the arteries. They're just like, okay, take this pill and it'll last this long. And I think taking a natural remedy is good, but it's kind of treating symptom as well. And I think you should do it combined in parallel by getting rid of the root cause, which most usually involves diet.
Thanks very much for a great question, Thomasina. And by the way, audience, I want to remind you that was a long, wonderful dialogue of information from Dr. Berg. All of our shows, although they're live, they do record. So after the fact, I think it takes a couple hours for each of them to regurgitate it. You can go back, and any area of interest you have, you can take notes and scrub through by watching it as a podcast after the live performance is done. And we've got hundreds of these shows as well as thousands of videos. So don't despair if you didn't scribble it down fast enough, Thomasina. You go ahead and check it out afterwards and get back with us on your improved health. Aurora from Facebook, how does high cholesterol affect bile flow?
Your bile actually comes from cholesterol. You cannot make bile without cholesterol. This is why when people are on a very low-fat diet or a low cholesterol diet or medications that block the production of cholesterol, because your body makes it, you end up with low bile. And then you have the other aspect of cholesterol, where the primary way that the body gets rid of excess cholesterol is through the bile mechanism. So this bile is really, really important, not just for fat extraction, but for elimination of excess cholesterol and other things as well.
All right, very good. Let's take a moment to acknowledge who's listening to us beyond Thomasina and our other guests. So we'd like to say a good day to all of our viewers joining us from the UK, Canada, Mexico, Slovenia, Jordan, Scotland, Singapore, the Philippines, South Africa, India, America, Samoa, Greece, Denmark, Ethiopia, Trinidad, and Tobago. Thank you, Terry, for your hard work on this. Egypt, Poland, the Netherlands, Chile, Japan, Pakistan, United Arab Emirates, Finland, the Dominican Republic, Moldova. Did I say that right, Terry? Curacao, Finland, Turkey, Brunei, the Virgin Islands, Kenya, Vietnam, Malta, Switzerland, Belgium, let's see, Vietnam, I got behind again, Bangladesh, Hungary, Brazil, Eritrea, Ghana, Australia, Albania, France, Portugal, the Virgin Islands, Israel, Kurdistan, Sweden, Ukraine, Germany, the Bahamas, New Zealand, Qatar, almost done audience, Dubai, and all across these United States. Thanks everybody for joining us in our worldwide quest to better health on the Dr. Berg Show. Okay, let's see, do we get any answers from the question yet? Not yet. Come on, audience. Crank it out. Aurora from Facebook. How does oh, no, we already did that. Cassia from Facebook. What's the best way to get rid of the terrible candida?
The best way is to starve candida. Don't give it any more food. It loves sugar, refined sugars, and refined starches. So just cut out all sugar and you literally will starve that candida to death. So that's what I would do if I were you.
All right, very good. Well, just as I accused the audience of not answering the question yet, they said, cool it, Steve, because we have an answer. And the question was, which is more effective for dry eyes, vitamin A or vitamin B1? And 55% of respondents say it's vitamin A, and 45% say it's vitamin B1. Do we have any winners?
So we do have some winners, of course. Both of these remedies can work for vitamin A depending on what's really causing the problem, right? What you're deficient in. But more than a vitamin A deficiency, it's going to be a vitamin B1 deficiency. So how does that relate? There's a nerve, the nervous system has a section called the autonomic nervous system that controls all the little glands and the little the ducts, there's little smooth muscle ducts for the tear glands. And when you have a problem with the autonomic nervous system, those tears are not released anymore and the eyes dry up. So one way to fix that is to restore the deeper root cause, because that part of the nervous system requires a certain neurotransmitter. It's called acetylcholine. But you cannot build that neurotransmitter without B1. B1 is at the kind of the heart of it. It's like the raw material it builds into it. And the big question is, how do you become deficient in B1? The most common way is by eating a lot of carbs and sugars, because in order to take that fuel and burn it, you need a spark plug, and B1 is a spark plug. And too many people are flooding their engine with too much fuel without enough spark plug. And so it doesn't get burned. So you don't make energy anymore for that nerve. And then the autonomic nervous system kind of breaks down. So you get dry eyes, dry mouth, dizzy, especially when you stand up. The digestive system locks up as well. And so you have issues with the valves. So you can have regurgitation going up, acid reflux. You could have a lot of issues. So I should probably do a video on that, on B1 deficiencies. But when you have dry eyes, just take more B1 to correct it and then fix your diet.
All right, very good. Terry usually scrubs through our social media, but this one person, Jean Gonzalez, put all these cute red question marks. Yes, it got my attention. Calcium score, can it be reversed?
Yes, it can. And there's a really good test to determine how long you're going to live, not just from heart attacks, but from other reasons why you might die. And that's called a coronary artery calcification test. Relatively inexpensive, relatively simple. I had it done. You want a 0 score. I think it goes over 1,000. So if it's the higher it is, the worse it is. That means your arteries are filled with calcium. So, but the calcium doesn't necessarily come in there because you're eating too much calcium. It comes in there because that's part of the Band-Aid that's healing the inflammation in the arteries, because if your diet is not good. And so if you have a high score, yes, if you change the diet and you get rid of the root cause, it will start coming down. However, there's and I'm not going to get into this on this presentation, but you can look it up. There's two types of plaque. There's more of a soft plaque and a hard plaque. And the hard plaque is more stable. So sometimes you might hit a point where it doesn't come down, but it's more stable, which means it's safer. It's not going to be as much of a problem. The soft plaque is where the problem is. So anyway, there's a lot more to talk about that. I don't want to go down too deep of a rabbit hole in this presentation.
All right, very good. Let's go to quiz question number 2 then.
Okay, out of all the areas to focus on improving, which is the most important in preventing cancer?
All right, very good. I pushed the wrong button. Let's see. Number 1, Mia Unicorn from YouTube. Is taking collagen bad for women who've had or are having breast cancer? I'm sorry to hear that, Mia.
It all depends on what type of cancer you have. Now, this is going to open a can of worms, but I'm just going to say it anyway. There's when we're talking about diets for cancer, which, you know, you go to the doctor. If you have cancer, do you know what they're going to tell you? Oh, it doesn't matter what you eat. Just eat whatever and keep taking your chemo. It's just because they don't really understand or know about the fuel of different types of cancer. And I will create a video on this topic, but you have a lot of different types of cancer. They behave differently. They don't all behave the same way. They do live on different fuels. Yes. And so if you could design an eating plan that restricts that cancer of that specific fuel, then you're going to be good to go. Some cancers thrive heavily on branched chain amino acids. Others can also survive on some of the amino acids in collagen. So I can't really answer that without knowing the specifics on the cancer, but I should create a document because, you know, with cancer, it's 1,000 times easier to prevent cancer than to wait until you have cancer and then try to get out of it. It's just more difficult because cancer is very, very sneaky, and you really got to know what you're doing. And you have to also rotate the eating plan every few days because cancer is going to find another way around it and adapt to what you do. So this is why one of the most potent things for cancer, if you have it, is just to literally fast as long as you can. Some people a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, because then you just completely starve off the resources. There's nothing there for the cancer to grab onto, but then your body is just more resilient to finding resources when you're fasting. But the cancer cell has a vulnerability to that. So again, it's just the secret is understanding cancer.
Well, Mia, I know the world joins us in wishing you a full and complete recovery. Let's see. Truth will prevail from Rumble. What could help persons with ADHD or ADD? I'm all ears.
Well, we're dealing with something going on in the brain. And the first thing I would look at is, what is that person eating? When you start to influence or inflame or deprive a certain part of your brain what it needs, whether it's fuel or nutrients, then your cognitive function will become less. Focus, attention, concentration, memory. And so you want to go back to the basics and run the body on the best fuel possible, which is ketones. The brain loves ketones more than glucose. Parallel with that, like I mentioned earlier, B1 is probably the most important nutrient for the nerves that will help the nerves, especially for ADD. But typically, the great majority of people doing with AD attention problems are heavy on the carbs.
Okay, very good. Let's go to quiz question number 2, which asked, of all the body areas to focus on improving, which is the most important in preventing what we just talked about, cancer? 44% of our respondents say it's the gut, 20% say it's the pancreas or liver, 16% say it's the brain, 10% say it's the intestines, and the final 10% say it's the colon. Are they on the right track, Doc?
I think maybe I should have worded this question a little bit more specifically, because I'm talking about not an organ, but something deeper. And that would be this one part of your cell that will determine if you get cancer or not. And that's the mitochondria. That's the energy factory of the body. The mitochondria is not just a powerhouse. It's not just an energy factory. It's the guardian of repair of DNA. It's the guardian. It influences your immune system greatly. So when the mitochondria becomes broken to a certain degree, then things start shifting, and then your cells start turning into cancer. That is the key thing with that. So and this is why, let's just take, for example, smokers. If you smoke chronically for many, many years, you are putting your lungs filled with toxic material, and you're starving them of oxygen, right? And that tissue, if you look deep inside it, it has probably less and less mitochondria and a lot of damaged mitochondria. So then one day you get pneumonia, and that virus triggers those weakened cells to go into cancer. So that's really how it works, but it's the mitochondrial damage at first that starts it. This will explain why certain people get colon cancer versus brain cancer versus lung cancer versus prostate cancer. There has to be some damaged group of cells with damaged mitochondria first, and then you seed it with, it could be some virus, it could be some asbestos, some fungus, anything that can trigger it. Even an injury can trigger it, or a severe stress, and then boom, it just lights on fire, and then you start getting cancer. I've done a million videos on how to keep your mitochondria strong. I'll doing more of those, but really, when you understand that, you can totally keep yourself out of the risk of cancer, because now your lifestyle aligns with keeping your mitochondria healthy.
Okay, since we just talked about fasting, is that one of the positive things for mitochondria?
Yeah, because when you fast, you increase the strength of the mitochondria, and then you start increasing the numbers, because the body has to compensate. And then you go through what's called autophagy, which is a state where you're recycling damaged mitochondria. I mean, autophagy is really the secret to cancer, because you're cleaning it up. This is why you want to do regular, periodic, prolonged fasting, whether it's once a week, once every 2 weeks, once a month. You do several days, and that way you can clean up these damaged mitochondria and bulletproof yourself against potential cancer. I'm telling you, it's so much easier to prevent it than to wait until you get it.
Boy, very encouraging. We'd also like to say give a shout out to our viewers in Argentina, Norway, Mongolia, Belize, the Czech Republic, and Panama. Thanks, guys, for checking in. Welcome. All right, let's go back to some other stuff. Hang on, I'm doing a little admin here. Rita from Facebook. I take magnesium glycinate before I go to bed. I'm still struggling to sleep well. Are there any other measures that Rita should take?
Rita, you somehow magically are picking up I think either the next or the next question on the quiz. So I'm going to hold off on that question until I do the quiz question, and then I'll answer. How about that?
All right, why don't we do just that? There you go, Doc.
I guess it's not this question, but probably the next one. Okay, here's this question. Concerning kidney stones, which, by the way, I am an expert at, because I had them and I went through them. And, it's hard to be an expert at something if you personally haven't experienced it enough. It's like, But when you have, boy, you have the reality, you've been there, you've done the research, and you never want to have that happen again. So can you post that question? Okay, concerning kidney stones, which focus is the most important when dealing with kidney stones? Avoiding oxalates, A. B. Adding citrates like lemon to the diet. C. Drinking more water. Or D. Increasing your magnesium. Which one is the most important thing you should focus on?
Can't wait for your answer, audience. All right, let's go to Cheryl from Facebook. What are your recommendations on the best way to lower cholesterol?
Well, I don't know if you knew this, but there's a lot of times the cholesterol that's coming in to the body is going to interact with the cholesterol that you're making, and then you'll make less, and then you'll net out as a normal cholesterol. But when you have like sweets, desserts, sugar, extra starches, a lot of that can be converted to cholesterol and raise your cholesterol. So with someone like you, I would have to look at your diet and see what's going on. But if you don't have a genetic problem with cholesterol, I would look at your carbs and reduce your carbs. There are certain percentage of the population that have a much higher cholesterol than the average person if they go on a low carb. But that type of cholesterol that's floating through the bloodstream in a little boat or a package, it's like an LDL, is not the kind that creates problems for you. That's not the kind that invades the arteries and creates inflammation. So in order to determine that, you need to find a competent person to evaluate that, and also look at an advanced lipid profile at the particle size of LDL to determine if it's the small dense, which is the bad one, versus the large buoyant, which is the one that's fine.
Okay, very good. We're going to go to Norway and bring in Helena, who's got a question for you, Dr. Berg.
Yes, hello.
Hello.
I have a question. 22 years ago, my gallbladder was removed, and 15 years I did very well. But last 7 years, I started to get up weight. I actually love fasting, and I really hate junk food and everything. But I think I did something wrong. So I ended up with high cholesterol, high blood pressure, and fatty liver. My question is how I can, by fasting, diet, supplements, reverse all these problems without any medication.
Good question. I think you did say you had your gallbladder removed, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So that's you're asking a very important question, because people have this idea that, well, it doesn't matter if you have a gallbladder or not, you'll be fine. The gallbladder is not just a sac that stores bile. It regulates the exact release of bile that you need in the intestines. So it's not too much and it's not too little. It also helps to get rid of excess cholesterol that you have in your body. It also helps prevent a fatty liver. There's also a lot of different aspects in how it can affect your metabolism, especially with your thyroid, because the thyroid, in order to convert T4 to T3, needs this bile, which is fascinating. So now you don't have a gallbladder. So I'm guessing either your liver is not producing enough, or it could be the gallbladder's not, you don't have the gallbladder. So your the secondary bile that's made from your gut is not there too. So there's a whole list of things you can do to improve this. First of all, I would start taking purified bile salts after you eat. Secondly, I would take TUDCA, which is a certain bile salt, on an empty stomach twice a day for your liver. I think both of those together will actually speed up your thyroid. And when the thyroid is sped up, then guess what? You'll actually probably release more bile too. And then the other cool thing is you're from Norway. And one of the best foods to activate more production of bile from your liver is fatty fish, believe it or not. So you wouldn't want to go on a low-fat diet. You'd want to have high-quality fish from Norway. There's a restaurant that I always went to that had this fresh salmon shipped over from Norway. It was such a treat. It was the best in the world. But I can imagine if you live there, you could probably get it even fresher. So then that's one thing. Other things that are good to help with this whole bile problem is to egg yolks have higher in choline. Choline is a good natural thing for bile. Also bitters like dandelion greens, arugula, beets are all really good for this problem. And then of course, lastly, go on the normal recommended diet that I recommend for people, a low, healthy version of the low ketogenic diet. And that way that will put the icing on the cake. I'm sorry, I shouldn't talk about cake, but it'll actually really help you tie everything in. And then also I will do a video, a comprehensive one on this topic so you can get a lot more details soon. So hang in there.
Thanks for calling us, Helena from Norway. I hope that helps. Okay, let's go to quiz question number 3. And by the way, Doc, the one you want is coming up next. And this one's asked, concerning kidney stones, which focus is the most important? Avoiding oxalates in foods, adding citrates from citrus fruits like lemon water, drinking more water, increasing your magnesium. And the audience, 48% of the respondents said all of them. 22% said it's A. 15% say it's B. And let me bring those questions back up so you can read them. And then 10% say it's C, and 5% say it's D. So it's all over the place. Doc, who gets the new Cadillac?
So I would say 3 weeks ago, I stumbled on something that was just huge, okay? Because I did have kidney stones, and I've been through a lot of different things. And so when they do a blood test or a urine test for kidney stones, they look at your citrates because your body can make them as well. They're looking at your oxalates because your body can make them as well. And they'll look at that. And on my profile, I was very low citrates, very high oxalates, calcium was high. Well, guess what? Out of all of those factors, if you actually took enough magnesium, sufficient amount of magnesium, your body's going to have more citrates in the urine. It's going to compete for the, in other words, magnesium competes stronger than calcium for oxalates. So it'll act as a substitute for that calcium, preventing the stone from being formed. And so magnesium is the answer. It is the answer to prevent, and also even if you have a kidney stone, out of everything that you do, that is the most important. I mean, let's just take what is the only symptom of high doses of vitamin D3? It's kidney stones. Why? Well, because when you take a lot of vitamin D, it's going to increase absorption of calcium. But normally what's supposed to happen is that calcium is supposed to kind of then go into the bone and the teeth when you have high amounts. Well, it can only do that if you have the magnesium. And yes, you need vitamin K2, but magnesium is the master controller of what happens to calcium inside your cells. Magnesium, if you have enough, it's very unlikely you're going to get toxic effects from vitamin D3. So I was very deficient. I didn't even know it at the time until I started taking magnesium because it's hard to test, and because most of it's inside your cells. It's hard to get it. Actually, it's hard to get it from your food. And then lastly, I'll say one more thing, Steve, about this, because they'll say you need to avoid high oxalate foods, chocolate, almonds, and spinach. Well, take a wild guess. The top 3 foods with the highest amount of magnesium: chocolate, almonds, and spinach. So here right there, we have this naturally built-in antidote for a lot of these oxalates. So, hypothetically, these foods, you might think that they cause it. And yes, there's a microbiome effect as well, but I know a lot of people will cut out those foods and still get kidney stones, Steve. So just make sure you have enough magnesium.
Okay, last question. Magnesium glycinate or the rest of them? Is there one in particular you need to go for?
The reason why that's a really good question, Steve. Should you take magnesium citrate because we need more citrates? I think you should get your citrates from lemon juice, because when you take magnesium citrate, that form, especially if you need it in the levels that you need, can create too much water, osmotic water being pulled into the colon and create more of a diarrhea, which you don't want to have if you're trying to get rid of kidney stone, because you're going to lose the electrolytes like magnesium. A better choice would be take magnesium glycinate and then lemon juice. That way you get the benefits of magnesium without the diarrhea or the laxative, as well as that glycine, which will actually increase your glutamine, which is an antioxidant. So that's a really key point. I'm glad you brought that up, Steve. But yeah, magnesium glycinate.
All right, here's another key point, and that's quiz question number 4, which you asked for.
Okay, so yes. What is the most potent way to fix your sleep circadian rhythm?
All right, for the commentator that wanted to know, stay tuned. We'll get to you. Tamara from Rumble, do you have any recommendations for someone with gastrocardiac syndrome, also known as rim-held syndrome? Have you heard of that?
I don't know anything about it, never looked at it. Sorry, can't help you in that one. I have no opinions on that.
All right, very good. Good luck with that. Jewel from Facebook, what are the differences between TUDCA and betaine hydrochloride? Are they used for different processes?
Completely different compounds. TUDCA is a synthetic bile salt that is actually mimicking bear bile, which is a different type of bile salt, and it's good. It's good to keep the bile thinned and prevent the bile sludge and prevent the stone, as well as it supports the liver, the brain. It crosses the blood-brain barrier. It does a lot of stuff for your mitochondria. It's quite interesting. But then you also have betaine hydrochloride, which is not a bile salt, but it's an acidifier for your stomach. So it can help build up the acid in the stomach, which, by the way, it will help you trigger the release or the production of bile just from that. But then having enough acid in your stomach can help the breakdown of protein, absorption of nutrients, and the killing of microbes that are in the food that you eat. So you need that acid.
All right, very good. Let's go to Canada, specifically to Vancouver, British Columbia, and we're going to talk to Linda, who has a quick question. Let me cut your audio on, dear. And there you are. One question for Dr. Berg, please.
Hi. I OMAD at 7 p.m. How do I consume vitamins and supplements, some of which are required to take early in the day, that need fat for better bioavailability? I can't even talk. Better bioavailability.
Yeah, good question. There's a couple things you can do, because you're right. Certain nutrients, especially if they're phytonutrients, believe it or not, are fat soluble, or if it's a vitamin A, D, E, or K, you need some fat. Sometimes you can get those supplements with a little bit of MCT oil. If you just take the smallest amount of olive oil, just the tiniest amount, like I'm talking like 1/8 of a teaspoon, that's all you need to actually create that absorption. You'll just get more absorption. But even if it is fat soluble, you're still getting a good amount of absorption. It just might not be 100%. So you have options, right? Add a little bit of oil, or just take it without anything, or just, take it with your food. But yeah, you have those 3 options basically. I mean, you can also, with certain phytonutrients like curcumin and turmeric, you can add the black pepper. But I'm telling you, like quercetin, the green tea extract, the curcumin are all fat soluble, so they do better with a little bit of oil. So, and then the other question is, what what is so important to take them on on that schedule unless they're for sleep. That's another question I would look at. And then of course, you don't want to take something that might wake you up, but sometimes it's like when you take the nutrient is not nearly as important as you might think.
All right, thanks for joining us, Linda. I appreciate it. And let's go on to Angelica from YouTube. What could help with excessive phlegm production in an elderly person?
You want to find the source of that. It could be food related. It could be you could be allergic to something like milk or dairy or something like that. A good thing to thin and cut the mucus is NAC. It's one of the most powerful things to keep the mucus cleaned out. So, you have that aspect, and you also have chronic mucus production because your immune system is weak, in which case probably it would help to take more vitamin D and zinc, which could actually clear things out.
All right, sorry. Let's go to. I'm trying to set up our last guest, but in the meantime, Floria, from Facebook, is the only remedy for bunions, as bunions are a frequent issue for women. What's your wisdom on that? What can she do for bunions?
Yeah, that's there's different shoes that you can get that will provide more space so it doesn't irritate you much. But once you have it, I don't know of a way to get rid of them other than some surgery or just to wear shoes that kind of don't aggravate them. If you happen to see the bunion starting when it's really small, there are ways to correct that there's certain shoes that allow more space with the toes, and if you find a good podiatrist, they can help you with that as well. But there is also, I think it's really, really important to get outside more and walk in the grass barefoot or with like a barefoot shoe, especially as a kid. And that probably would help prevent those. But that's just my guess.
Okay, let's see. Let's go to our final guest, and that is Lilia Tello from Arizona. Lilia, go ahead with your one question for Dr. Berg.
Oh, your speaker is muted.
Oh, excuse me. Let's see. Yeah, cut on your speaker, dear.
Sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. I recently went to the doctor and I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's disease, fatty liver. I have low iron, estrogen dominance. My cholesterol is like at 6.1. And I was advised to drink progesterone, 100 mg. And I want to fix it the natural way. I do not want to take thyroid medications or hormones. I'm wondering if the ketogenic diet would work for me and what vitamins should I buy. I went to your website and I was overwhelmed with the amount of vitamins you have. I wanted to buy like everything, but I'm not sure what would be the best for the situation that I have.
Yeah, one quick little caveat to that. When we talk about any diseases that you have, I can't tell you to take one of my vitamins, but I'm just going to speak generally, okay?
Okay.
So if you have Hashimoto's, that means the thyroid, it's an immune problem and the thyroid's not working. So that alone will make it hard to lose weight. That alone can create fatty liver. That alone can affect all the symptoms that you just mentioned. So I would focus in on just that one problem first, in which case you need high doses of vitamin D3, magnesium, and vitamin K2. There's a great protocol, Dr. Coimbray. I talk about him. I interviewed him. You should look at. There's 4 doctors in the United States that specialize in that. I'll have to put that on my website just to show people, but because it's really good to work with someone with the high doses, especially if you're dealing with that disease, so they can kind of look at everything and make sure you're really good. That being said, you did mention something else that I was going to comment on. Oh, yeah, with the Hashimoto's, you want selenium. Selenium is going to be very, very important as well. So that's another very important thing. Another thing to avoid is gluten. And that relates to the next thing I'm going to tell you is Yes, 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 you need to go on the healthy version of the ketogenic diet for sure. That'll give you a chance to turn this thing around because there's something that triggered it. And a lot of people benefit from all of the symptoms of Hashimoto's with the ketogenic diet, because what are you doing? You're dropping the inflammation, and that's really what you're dealing with, is a lot of inflammation because your immune system is out of whack. So I think it'll be massively beneficial. You'll start losing weight, you'll start feeling better, and who knows, that Hashimoto's might go right into remission. But that's the area that I would focus and study on, and I would watch some of my videos on Hashimoto's because I go into the details on that.
Thanks, Lilia. Okay, quiz question number 4. What's the most potent way to fix your sleep circadian rhythm? And 65% of our respondents say early morning exposure to sunlight. 15% say keeping the bedroom dark and cool. 10% say eliminate or reduce blue light exposure, I guess at night. And 10% say keeping a regular sleep schedule. Those all sound pretty brainy.
This is very interesting because you start off, if you're lucky, you don't have a sleeping problem, and then it starts a little bit of a sleeping problem, and then worse, 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 worse. You get older, and all of a sudden, wow, your sleep is all messed up. You know, you're tired way before you should go to sleep, and then you wake up a lot earlier than when you should wake up. So the circadian waves, the rhythms, are kind of collapsing. You no longer get the depth of sleep that you need. And out of all the foundational things that will prevent you from getting healthy, sleep is right at the top of the list. Your hormones won't work, your inflammation stays high, your metabolism stays low, it's hard to lose weight, you're going to crave certain things if you're not sleeping correctly. So if we just take a look at how our bodies were designed to work around this circadian rhythm, it has to do with the exposure of light and darkness. But think about what we do. We basically turn the light on till late night, and then we go to sleep, and then we don't actually go outside probably right away. But the first answer was correct. You want to get early morning sun exposure. There's a blue, I think it's a blue turquoise sunrise that you want to just be in front of for 20 to 30 minutes in the morning, like right around, maybe 7 o'clock in the morning, where you're getting this sun, okay? And you want the sun a little bit in your eyes. I'm not talking about looking into the sun, but just allow that light, that blue light, to wake you up, okay? Versus the blue light from your computer screens at night. You don't want that because that's artificial blue light. We want this natural light to go in our eyes. Now, let's say, for example, it's winter and you can't go outside. Well, you could buy a blue light that has a nanograms, I think it's 480 nanograms, that will match the sun, and you can sit in front of that, while you're doing your computer in the morning. That's really important to wake you up and to establish this circadian wave. Then, when it starts to get dark out, maybe 2 or 3 hours before bed, start dimming the lights. Start having the lights down. And you might even benefit from a blue blocker glasses at night if you're watching TV. And that way we filter out the blue light. So now we get this sleep pressure that can come in and help you go to sleep. And the research on this morning light and evening darkness, you can get literally 30 to 60 more minutes of sleep in the morning just by doing that alone. This is like so simple and so important. Now we get to coffee, caffeine, chocolate has some, stimulants. What that does, that gets rid of this molecule called adenosine, which is it basically is like a fatigue molecule that builds up through the day with activity, and then it's supposed to help you put pressure, go to sleep. And then you wake up you drink caffeine, it gets rid of that molecule, so it wakes you up. So caffeine basically doesn't give you energy, it just removes the fatigue or sleep molecule. So obviously, knowing that, have less coffee, only have it in the early morning, have less chocolate early on, and that's it. And then don't do that before bed or at lunch even. And that's going to start to, those simple things will be so beneficial, not to mention the heavy resistant exercise that can help build up the sleep. But the light cycles are the most important for establishing the circadian wave of sleep, and it really does work. And I would try that before taking melatonin and other things.
All right, sounds great. Since we are short on time, and this is a related question, would you mind answering that for the audience?
How does room temperature influence your sleep? Okay, so we talked about the circadian rhythm, but there's also temperature, believe it or not. Temperature actually stimulates the delta wave sleep cycle. So it actually, at night, your body gets cooler to push you into the more rejuvenating repair part of sleep. If you are sleeping and you're too hot, you're not going to get that. That's why it's really important to adjust the temperature. But as we age, what happens is that temperature, that cool, doesn't necessarily, because our body actually goes like 1 to 2 degrees down at night. As we age, we don't maintain that coolness all the way to 7 or 8 hours. It kind of becomes maybe 4 or 5 hours, and then we get early morning insomnia. So there's a couple things that you can do to overcome that. One is you can take glycine, and you can even take it in the magnesium glycinate, because glycine actually lowers the temperature. So if you take that before bed, take even magnesium glycinate before bed, and then you'll actually increase the temperature more, so you can actually stay asleep longer, layered on top of that light darkness thing. And then in some people, what wakes them up is the cortisol in the morning. It normally goes up at 8 in the morning, but when you get older, now it triggers at 7, 6, sometimes 5 or earlier. So now we got this cortisol spike that's waking you up, in which case you need to work on your stress. You need to work on take ashwagandha, maybe B1. And then that way you'll cover all these different points about sleep that could really stop so many other things from happening. Because if you don't sleep, wow, you don't have the energy. It affects your mood, your brain, your hormones. I mean, like everything. So this is why I think it's so important to master the sleep consistently every morning.
Okay, let's try one last quick question. Jai Vaught from Facebook. What advice would you share for treating varicose veins?
Well, I would, of course, go on a low-carb diet. There's some data to show that the natural vitamin C complex can help varicose veins. And there's also various herbs that you can take. What's that herb that's good for varicose veins? I'll have to write it in the comment section because I don't recall it, but there's one herb that's really good for varicose veins. But I would just make sure you have enough of the vitamin C complex. The best source of vitamin C is actually from raw sauerkraut. So that would be something that you could take to get the full vitamin C complex, or just get it, consume foods high in vitamin C. And those would be bell peppers, lemon or lime, sauerkraut, like I said. The leafy greens have vitamin C. Kiwi has vitamin C. Papaya has vitamin C. The vitamin C is in a lot of different things. But on that note, Steve, I think we're going to wrap up, and I appreciate your attention, staying around this long into this presentation. Have a great weekend. I will see you next week. Same time, same place.